Alright, I'm back with another Ace Attorney video. A couple of years ago, my Ace Attorney games ranking video surprisingly blew up on my channel. I loved seeing all your comments, especially reading your personal top lists, and thank you very much for doing that. As a massive fan of the series, I'm thrilled to dive deeper into it. Today, I'm gonna rank all the Ace Attorney packages. What do I mean by that? Well, I'm talking about Phoenix Wright Ace Attorney Trilogy, Apollo Justice Ace Attorney Trilogy, The Great Ace Attorney Chronicles, and the recent Ace Attorney Investigations collection. We can now play every single Ace Attorney game on any modern console. Isn't that amazing? In this video, I'll be ranking these packages from worst to best, considering both the games themselves and the overall quality of the collection. So, court is now in session. Coming in at number 4, we have the Apollo Justice Ace Attorney Trilogy. For me, this is the weakest of the packages, but let me be clear, I still recommend it. I genuinely don't think there's a bad or terrible game in the entire Ace Attorney series. Since I've already gone deep into each of these games in my Ace Attorney games ranking video, I'll keep things brief this time. And hey, if you haven't seen that video, go check it out after this, or before this. Starting with the games themselves, Apollo Justice Ace Attorney is for me the weakest in the entire series. That said, I still enjoy playing it every now and then, and I absolutely love its 2D visuals, which are reminiscent of the original trilogy. Then we move into Dual Destinies, which introduced us to the 3D visual style for Ace Attorney. It's definitely an improvement over Apollo Justice, but still not the series' strongest entry. Finally, we hit Spirit of Justice, which is easily the best game in this trilogy. So when you look at this trilogy as a whole, it's not consistently great. It's really Spirit of Justice that shines. Think of those movie trilogies where each movie gets progressively better, with the third one being the undisputed highlight. When you reflect on those, you often only really care about that third installment because it's the standout. Apollo Justice Ace Attorney Trilogy feels a lot like that. Furthermore, I'm still a little perplexed by the trilogy's title. It's called the Apollo Justice Ace Attorney Trilogy, yet aside from the first game, Apollo Justice Ace Attorney, the other two are still titled Phoenix Wright Ace Attorney Dual Destinies and Phoenix Wright Ace Attorney Spirit of Justice. And yes, Apollo does get some significant development throughout these games, especially in Spirit of Justice, but naming the entire collection after him feels a bit off to me, but that's just me. Now let's talk about the package itself. I'd still say this is the weakest one. I'm not the biggest fan of the menu screen here, and I really dislike the autoplay mode here, or I think it's called like the story mode, which literally solves the entire game for you. If it just autoplay dialogue so we didn't have to constantly press the button, that would be different, and I know there's an autoplay mode where you can do that, but having the game solve everything completely ruins the core purpose of this series. And you might argue, oh, just don't use it, and of course I don't, but the function being there is still a bummer. I also really dislike that all the cases are unlocked from the start. You can jump into any case, even any section of a case right away. For me, that's another downside. Why not require players to unlock each case as they complete the previous one? This baffling design choice applies to all the other packages too, except for the original trilogy. Now, everything I've said might not bother you at all, but these minor details do affect my overall experience. Coupled with the fact that I find these three games, especially the first two, to be quite weak compared to other entries in the series, it puts this package in last place. But please remember, I don't hate it. Just because it's in last place doesn't mean I dislike it. It's just simply my least favorite. Now, fans, including myself, have been absolutely dying for this collection, and especially for Investigations 2. For the longest time, Investigations 2 was only available in Japan. We relied on fan-translated versions played through emulators, and while that was better than nothing, what we really craved was an official worldwide release. So imagine my head exploding when Capcom finally announced this collection. I also want to address something quickly. The name changes for a lot of the characters here didn't bother me in the slightest. I know some fans were heavily disappointed that Sebastian the Best is now used as Winner and so on, honestly, to those complaining, I kind of rolled my eyes and thought, just be happy, we're finally getting this game. So if I'm praising this game so much, why is this collection at number 3 and not like at number 1? Well, it comes down to the other half of this collection, Investigations 1. Look, I don't hate the first game, and I still really enjoy the gameplay where you get to play as Edgeworth, but it's nowhere near as great as the second one. In fact, you don't really need to play Investigations 1 to understand Investigations 2, as they don't have a strong narrative connection. I will say though, playing the first game with the new art style does make it a bit more fun to go through this time around. Speaking of the art style, let's talk about the package itself. I really like how clean everything is here, the UI is sleek and there are a lot of achievements, which is a nice touch. I also thought it was a brilliant idea to include the option to switch between the new art style and the original pixel art style for fans who prefer the classic look. Personally, I don't really care about achievements and unlockables when I play Ace Attorney games. And yes, there are unlockables in Apollojustice Ace Attorney Trilogy, which I didn't mention, but it's neat that they're here for those people who want to achieve stuff and unlock stuff. However, this collection also have that story mode feature, which I'm still not a fan of, and all the cases are unlocked from the start, which again, I'm not a fan of. Ultimately, if I were just ranking Ace Attorney Investigations 2, it would easily be my number 1, but because of the inclusion of the first game, this duology lands at number 3. Despite that, I'm still super happy this collection exists. I'm incredibly thankful that Capcom finally released the second game worldwide. Truly, it's not just the collection I'm happy about, it's that Investigations 2 has finally received its official global release. When Capcom announced the worldwide release of the Great Ace Attorney Chronicles, I could not have been happier. Just like Investigations 2, both of these Great Ace Attorney games were previously Japan exclusive. This release generated massive hype, and it even gave me hope that Investigations 2 would eventually get its official release too, which thankfully it did. This duology is absolutely fantastic, and what makes it truly unique is how heavily connected both games are. The fifth and final case in the first game isn't really a final case in the traditional sense. It concludes the first game, but leaves you hanging with a bunch of cliffhangers. The second game then picks up directly where the first left off. It's more like one big continuous narrative, and honestly, I loved that approach. For the first time, both games share the exact same courtroom and character music because it truly is one sprawling story. So as I said, these two games are best viewed as one large narrative. This also means that when looking at them separately, the first game, The Great Ace Attorney Adventures, really functions as a part 1. It contains a lot of tutorials and setup, and just as things get truly interesting, the game ends. I mentioned this in my previous video, but if these games had been released worldwide one at a time, and I'd only played the first Great Ace Attorney, I might have been a little disappointed. Not that the game was boring or bad, far from it, but all the truly explosive payoffs happen in the second game. I would have had to wait 2 years or so to actually play the second game and get that full payoff. But still, it is a pretty damn good part 1 because it introduces you to a completely different generation with an entirely new cast of characters, and I absolutely loved every single one of them. And of course, the second game, The Great Ace Attorney Resolve, has phenomenal cases. Literally every case in that game is fantastic, and it concludes with such a huge satisfaction that it almost brought tears to my eyes. So this Chronicles collection is a very unique entry in this series, and I absolutely adore it. It's just that whenever I go back to play this duology, the first game can feel a little slow to start. I would also argue that this collection features the best implementation of the 3D art style in the entire series. I didn't emphasize this when talking about the Apollojustice trilogy, but the 3D art style in Dual Destinies and Spirit of Justice often felt a little unnatural with the character designs and the emotions. However, the Great Ace Attorney Chronicles 3D art style looks absolutely superb. The characters and the animations all feel incredibly natural. Now let's talk about the package itself. I love the UI here, it's clean and intuitive. There are achievements and unlockables, which are always a nice bonus, though I don't particularly care about them. I still don't like how all the cases are unlocked from the beginning. Overall, I really like this package, and for me the Great Ace Attorney Chronicles is the only duology that can truly stand toe-to-toe with the original trilogy. Which of course leads us to Now, I don't know if this is a hot take or the most obvious take ever, but for me, the original Phoenix Wright Ace Attorney trilogy is still the absolute best in the entire series. This is where it all began. Phoenix Wright remains the undisputed star, and the characters introduced here are nothing short of classic, iconic, and utterly lovable. Most importantly, every single game in this collection is phenomenal. You could argue that Trials and Tribulation is the pinnacle, or maybe the first game. Phoenix Wright Ace Attorney is your favorite, and I'd agree that Trials and Tribulations probably takes the crown within the trilogy, but the truth is, each individual game here is outstanding. And yes, I'll even argue that Justice for All, often unfairly criticized, is a fantastic game for those who think it's terrible. While this trilogy isn't as heavily connected narratively as, say, the Great Ace Attorney Chronicles, meaning each game can be played individually at any time, it still feels incredibly right to play them chronologically. The characters are so endearing and you witness so much development from them across all three titles. I also love how the first game introduces the spirit channeling mechanic, adding new layers to the gameplay, and then in the third game it becomes a huge plot point, culminating in one of, if not the best cases in the entire series. Sure, there are a couple of cases in this trilogy that aren't as highly regarded as others, some even have a pretty bad reputation, but for me, even those cases are genuinely enjoyable. Why? Because I simply adore all these characters. So what about the package itself? Well, it's the simplest in the entire series. You might argue that this might be the worst package in this series. There are no fancy unlockables or extra features, you just pick which game you want to play and off you go. But for me, since this is a subjective list, that's precisely what I love about this trilogy. Its simplicity is its strength. When I'm playing Ace Attorney, I don't need achievements or bonus contents. And the biggest plus here, and something I believe should be standard across the series, is that all the cases are locked until you beat the previous one. When I first played this trilogy, the excitement of beating a case, unlocking the next, and wondering what wild scenario awaited me was the absolute best part of the experience. Even now, as someone who replays the original trilogy at least once or twice a year, I still get that thrill. And while I obviously know who the culprit is and how the crime happened for each case, I still discover new information and fresh dialogue from these characters every single time I play. It truly feels new each playthrough. Am I biased? Maybe, I don't know. But despite all these incredible new trilogies and duologies we've received, this original Phoenix Wright Ace Attorney trilogy remains untouchable in my eyes. And that is why it's my absolute favorite trilogy and package in this series. So there you have it, my ranking of every Ace Attorney package. Feel free to agree or disagree, and please let me know your own list down in the comments section below. I love reading your takes. Thank you so much for watching, and have a good morning, afternoon, evening, or night to you all. The court is now adjourned.